Found my brother on Facebook after a DNA test revealed our link, leading me to discover my loving father and a whole new family. I, 23F, had grown up without a father. A little bit of background. My mom was addicted to drugs, so home wasn't an option for her to stay at anymore. She would hop from place to place living where she could, whether it be with friends, boyfriends, drug dealers, etc. She later found out at the age of 19 she was pregnant after getting into a car accident. That was enough to scare her into the reality that she needed to grow up. She got her act together, went to college, and is now almost 10 years sober, living her best life. With that past in mind though, you can kind of understand why it wasn't anyone's fault not knowing. She had a lot of friends who were men, no shade, mom, gotta do what you gotta do. My mother was young, dumb, and made decisions she regrets. But I never held that against her. Growing up I didn't have any trust with men. I resented almost all the guys she would date or have over. I was never abused/molested, but I never let myself get close to or be alone with them at any moment. I would watch true crime with my grandma, so I knew what men did to little girls. I never had a father figure to go against that, so I never trusted them. They were all shitty anyways, and she deserved so much better. That also made me have the stigma that all men, especially black men my mom would date, weren't the ones to mess with. And for the record, my mom is white and I am mixed. After experiencing this, I had no intentions on meeting or knowing who my father was, because if he was anything like the men I saw, I didn't want anything to do with him. I would wonder though who he was, what he looked like, and if he was even alive or not. Fast forward to now, I'm engaged to my fiancée, 23M, going on 8 years. I have learned to trust through them and even have a better view on men while not completely hating lol. I also got to know his father, who isn't perfect but loves me like his own. As well as having my mother's father, who was always there if I was in trouble and would educate me on stereotypical men things like cars, fishing, and fixing things. I am extremely grateful for them both to be in my life. Me and mom are on really good terms now, and we would have frequent talks about who my father could be. All she remembers is before she was in the car accident she had eyes for a guy who worked at a liquor store and that would let her crash at his place before he left to a different state. She never remembered his name though. Last Christmas my soon-to-be Mill gifted us both ancestry DNA tests. My fiancé would always say things like, maybe this will help you find your dad. I would shrug it off or seem uninterested because I was more curious to see what ethnical background I had. 8 weeks after I sent off the test we finally got results. I was shocked. Not only did I find out that I have multiple African countries in my percentile, I found my half-brother on my father's side. Who would have known this would change everything? I saw that we shared a whopping 25% of DNA. I got curious. My interest in finding who my dad was immediately sparked into existence. It was like I actually had a chance. My first thought was Facebook. And wouldn't you know, he had one. I messaged him explaining the situation. Before sending it I had so many thoughts, like what if he thought I was lying, so I made sure to send a screenshot of the results. What if he doesn't care or not want anything to do with me? I hesitated a lot, but after staring at the send button, something inside me said push it, and it happened. Days go by and nothing. Until there was something. He was so happy to hear there was another person in his tribe. He's very down to earth. I was so relieved I started bombarding him with questions, but also apologizing if I was bothering him. He was always late to reply, but I was patient. I expected the worst and was ready if he decided one day to just stop replying altogether. He finally told me his father's name and I decided to search for him as well, but found nothing. It wasn't until he posted a picture with him and tagged his Instagram that I would find him. I DM'd him on Instagram and was so amazed from the response. Turns out even though he doesn't remember my mother, he lived in the same area as her before moving out of state, and worked at a liquor store. Things started to add up. He gave me his number so that we could keep in touch and talk about other little details that might spark his memory. He would constantly tell me, you look like US, that's why I'm still actively invested. He said he would take a DNA test as well from the same website so we both would know. He has 5 other children and is a big family man. He loves his kids and would talk to me about them. Since we both had our hopes up, he would shoot notes like your brother, your sister, your aunt, like he was accepting me even though he didn't know 100% for sure yet. All we knew was that his son was my brother. But I had little doubts, like what if it's off by a bit, maybe he's my cousin and not my brother? Regardless, we are family, right? I had to prepare myself for the worst just in case. After talking for 4 months we finally got the results back. It was a normal day. I was on my phone when he sent me a screenshot of the results that read, you and me are a match of 50% daughter and father. My fiancé was cooking dinner when I showed him. I broke down in his arms. It was like a huge weight had lifted off my shoulders. My heart was racing, it felt like I was having a panic attack that was filled with joy. I finally got answers that I wasn't even searching for until now. We talked on FaceTime for the first time and both cried. He apologized for not being there for any of my firsts. First walk, talk, love, heartbreak, everything a father should be there for his daughter. I told him he had nothing to be sorry for. He had no idea and wouldn't have known. He's been so nice and everything I could ask for in a father. I can't lie, it's a bit weird for me and will need some getting used to. I mean, I don't even call my fiancé's dad. I never had someone to call that until now. He has messaged me every day since then telling me good morning and to have a great day. And that we will talk more in depth and make plans to meet up to see my other side of the family. I'm excited as well as nervous. This is a whole other chapter in my life that's about to unlock. I always felt that things happen for a reason and that since it's happening right now it's the best time. I truly can't wait for this adventure. I can't thank my mill enough for this. I mean, I always wanted to do a DNA test, but it was always too expensive or I'll get around to it. I'm forever grateful. Update 1. It's been a while since I posted this. You can find the original post on my profile or I'll try and link it. I'm an amateur at Reddit posting, but long story short. My mill gifted me an Ancestry.com test and I found my half-brother, which led me to my father, and it was the best case scenario you could think of. He was so accepting and it was a magical moment. I don't want to make a huge update, probably will cause I'm a yapper, because I don't think this will ever get read on the Too Hot Take seat, but doesn't hurt to try, right? Right after I posted this I met my dad a couple months later. My now husband and I flew to Arizona and he greeted me with one of my younger brothers, 21 at the time. I gave him the biggest hug and we both cried. The rest of the trip was hours of catching up. I brought baby pictures to show. Told stories of my childhood. And it was sudden, but we even went on a little road trip together to Sedona with his wife and my 3 younger siblings. It was definitely fast-paced for my brain to even react. However, all of this couldn't have worked out better. Him, my siblings, and his wife all accepted me with open arms. It was the trip of a lifetime. We had our moments when there were no words, just realization. I had a father who happens to be a great guy and he had a daughter that he missed out on so much with. To this day he apologizes for not being there. That if he knew, my life wouldn't have had to be missing that other piece that created me. Because he is everything I am that's different from my family. We are both patient and good listeners. We are both fire signs, so we immediately bonded. Lol. We are both introverted extroverts and wear our hearts on our sleeves. He is spiritually inclined and we can talk freely about our beliefs and discuss similarities. He's Christian and I'm a scientific believer / semi-Christian. We are empathetic and when we talk it's so natural, like I have always known him and that he was just waiting for me. Later that year I got married. And of course him and my siblings were invited and they came. His wife is shy and decided to stay behind with my sister who is autistic and doesn't travel well, which she is my only sister BTW and I always wanted one. My other side of the family was so excited to meet them and questioned if he would be walking me down the aisle. In which I responded with no, and he's okay with that because I don't know if it's just me, but we just met and we're still not that close, so I felt like that job was made for someone who would literally be giving me away. So my grandpa did and everything was beautiful. We did have a father-daughter dance though, literally a thing I never thought would happen. He even made a speech that wasn't expected, but man did he deliver. Tears were flowing from everyone. I still danced with my mom but also encouraged all mothers and daughters to come up and dance as well. It was to slipping through my fingers from Mamma Mia. Both moments were so special and made that the best night of my life. Now I've gotten even closer with him and his side of the family. People have reached out and added me on Facebook and even texted me out of the blue informing me they were from his side. I've never felt so loved by strangers in my life. It made me think of myself and how I was content with never finding this out. Being okay if I had never gotten a DNA test. Where would my life be right now? This was life-changing and I thank a higher power for sending me such amazing people that happen to be of my own flesh and blood. I hope y'all like this update. It will probably be the last. Happy endings are always my favorite and hopefully I can inspire others that are in my situation. Even if it is a dead end, I still recommend finding out where you came from and what your history is. It was fascinating finding out the little traits I had that were pasted down to me. I also hope this gets a spot on the Too Hot Takes podcast. I watch every episode as soon as they come out. Congratulations Morgan and Justin on the wedding. You guys are a beautiful couple and I wish you both happiness and that this post made you smile if it was after a really depressing or disturbing post. Update 2. So remember how I said that was probably my last update? Yeah, no life said hold my drink because the last 3 months have been the craziest, sweetest, most surreal blur ever. It started with a 10 p.m. call from my dad where he goes, not to scare you but mama isn't doing well and I want you to meet her while she can still tell you all her stories. I booked flights before I even processed it and my husband and I were in Arizona 2 days later. His mom, my grandma, that still feels wild to type, is this tiny woman with the softest hands and the sharpest eyes, and she looked at me and went, there she is, like she had been waiting at a bus stop for 23 years. She squeezed my hand and told me I have her sister's mouth and my dad's don't mess with me eyebrows, and then she made me eat even though we were in a hospital and she only had yogurt and a smushed granola bar in her drawer. She perked up enough to go home the next week, and on our last night she brought out this old cracked leather family Bible where they write everyone's births inside the cover, and she handed me a pen and said, put yourself in. I ugly cried, he ugly cried, the nurse who brought our discharge papers cried. It was a whole mess, but the good kind. And then my dad did something that made my stomach flip in the best way and the worst way at once. He asked if I was ready for him and my mom to meet. I had been avoiding it because it felt like if you touch a spider web wrong the whole thing collapses, like delicate and sticky and complicated. But my mom said yes with this shaky laugh and told me to pick a coffee shop in our hometown. The drive there felt like I was taking my heart on a field trip. We got there early and I swear to you the second he walked in she went silent and then she just smiled. Not the I'm being polite smile, but the one she used to give me when I brought home an A in a class I hated. They hugged like people who finally found the other end of a sentence, and then they sat and my dad apologized for missing everything even though he didn't know, and my mom apologized for disappearing into chaos, and they both said I'm sorry at the same time and then started laughing and then crying all over again. He told her about the nights he worked double shifts at the liquor store and let neighborhood kids take the last popsicles for free, and she told him about the car accident and how that moment snapped her into being a mom, and they both looked at me like I was the third person at their table and the point of the whole thing. It didn't feel dramatic or TV or anything. It felt like two people being really honest and then just letting go. We even drove over to where the old liquor store used to be, and of course it's a vape shop now, because of course lol, and we took a dorky picture out front like tourists of our own lives. The wildest part came that weekend. One of my aunties, who is really his cousin but everyone over there is an auntie or uncle which I love, had a shoebox of photos from back in the day, like actual glossy prints with dates scribbled on the back, and we're flipping through them at the kitchen table and I stop, because there is a 4th of July block party picture and in the background, like blurry and laughing and holding a red cup with her head thrown back, is my mom. The same little star tattoo by her wrist, the same bandana she used to tie around her hair when she was hot, the same freckles I count when she's not wearing makeup. None of us knew that picture existed. My mom went so quiet and then she put her finger on the corner of it like she was afraid it would float away and said, "Oh my God." My dad just kept shaking his head and grinning like the universe had been leaving us breadcrumbs the whole time, and we finally found one that tasted like proof. I took a copy of that photo home and it's sitting on my bookshelf in a frame that still has the cheap sticker on it because I don't even want to take it apart again yet. Somewhere in all of this my body decided to chime in. I've always brushed off my little heart flutters as anxiety or too much cold brew, but at the hospital with Grandma, a nurse put one of those portable monitors on me because I made a joke about my chest doing backflips, and she was like, "Humor me," and then she ran the strip to a doctor and came back and very calmly told me that I should follow up because my QT numbers were longer than they like. I had never even heard of that before. We did the whole cardiology thing when I got home, and it turns out a couple folks on my dad's side have the same long QT thing and never knew until a cousin fainted at a track meet years ago. I'm okay, it's manageable. I just have a little list of meds to avoid and a tiny pill every night and an excuse to cut energy drinks. Good riddance, and it felt like the test brought me a dad and also quietly gave me a heads up about my own heart. It's crazy to think something that started as me being nosy about where my cheekbones came from might have kept me from a what if later. It hasn't all been big tears and epiphanies though. It's also been small sweet weird moments that feel like stitching. My autistic sister, who was too overwhelmed to fly to my wedding, asked me if I'd do her hair while we watched a movie and sat on the floor together, and she let me gently detangle and twist and she hummed, and it was this pocket of stillness I didn't know I needed. One of my brothers invited me to his open mic and then asked in this awkward adorable way if he could write a song about finding out he had a big sister, and I said, "Only if I get to be in the music video as the person who nods too hard in the audience." My dad sends me sunrises he sees from his porch and calls them good morning pictures, and for some reason that might make me cry more than anything else because it's so normal. My husband and my dad have this little thing where they pretend they're both terrible at fixing stuff, so I won't ask them to mount anything on the wall, and then I catch them in the garage measuring and watching YouTube tutorials, like they're planning a heist. And then there's the part I didn't expect to type so soon. We're pregnant. I found out 2 weeks after getting home from Arizona, and I took 3 tests because apparently I don't believe anything the first time anymore, and then I called my mom and she screamed, and then I FaceTimed my dad and he froze with his mouth open, and then he started laughing and crying at the same time and then asked if he could come to an appointment, and I said yes obviously, and then he sat in the parking lot on FaceTime listening to the swoosh 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 of a heartbeat through my belly because we only get one person in the room, and I chose my husband but my dad was there anyway, and it felt like that little line between what we missed and what we get is softening. We decided on a middle name that's his mom's middle name, and when I told her, she did that gaspy clap that grandmas do and started talking about crocheting a blanket even though her hands aren't what they used to be, and I said I don't care if it's crooked, I will wrap my baby in every crooked stitch. We're planning a blended Thanksgiving because apparently my family likes to go from zero to Brady Bunch, and my mom is making her famous mac and cheese, and my dad swears his smoked turkey would put a restaurant out of business, and my grandpa is already teasing that he's going to sit between them and referee. Everyone is being weirdly cool and grown about it, which makes me think the universe is rewarding all of us for doing the scary thing and leading with softness. I still have days where it feels like too much and I need to put my phone on do not disturb and just watch garbage TV and breathe, and nobody takes it personally, which makes me love them even more. I feel like a bridge most days. A happy one with sturdy rails and pretty views, but still, a bridge. And the best part is no one is running across it. We're just walking, meeting in the middle, sharing snacks, pointing out the water, going look at that like we're still surprised it's even there. Update 3. Remember how I swore the last one was probably the last one? Apparently the universe heard me, put on glitter, and said encore. Thanksgiving happened and it felt like my whole life sat down at one very long table and passed each other butter. My mom pulled up with her famous mac and cheese like it was a championship trophy, and my dad rolled in with this ridiculous spaceship smoker that looked like R2-D2 joined a barbecue team, and the first thing my grandpa did was wedge his chair between them and pull a whistle out of his pocket just in case, which he never actually used. He just blew it quietly at me when I tried to take a piece of turkey before grace. Everything smelled like cinnamon and smoke, and my autistic sister wore headphones and a sequin sweater that said "only here for pie," and my brothers took over my kitchen like they'd been doing it their whole lives, and my husband ran interference with oven mitts, and everyone weirdly stayed in their lanes, like an orchestra tuning and then somehow landing on the same note. When we went around and said what we were grateful for, my dad said time and then looked at me, and I swear the baby kicked right then, like she agreed, and then it turned into this puppy pile of hands on my belly because nobody in this family has boundaries when they're happy, and I was laughing and crying and trying to breathe around a rib that suddenly felt like it was in the wrong spot. My mom and dad ended up shoulder to shoulder at the sink after dinner, sleeves rolled up, clinking plates together and talking about nothing on purpose, and it was so normal I had to step into the hallway and just let myself feel how wild normal is. 2 days later my dad asked me a question that made my throat do that tight thing where it feels like you swallowed a peach pit. He texted, "How would you feel about me being on your birth certificate?" And I sat with it long enough to realize the answer wasn't complicated. We made an appointment at the county office, which is the least magical place on earth unless you were us apparently, and we brought the DNA results and our IDs, and my mom came because it felt right, and an older woman behind the glass slid a form through the slot and said, "Sign when you're ready," and my dad held the pen like it might run away. He wrote his name in this careful slow way like he was writing on water, and my mom squeezed my shoulder and I didn't even pretend not to cry. The clerk stamped it and said congratulations like she just married us to a new truth, and I walked out with a certified copy rolled in a rubber band in my purse and the stupidest grin on my face. I didn't think paper could change how your chest feels, but it did, it really did. I sent a picture to my grandma, his mom, and she sent back "welcome home baby" with 17 heart emojis because she counts love like loose change. We hit the 20-week anatomy scan last week, and my dad flew in early just to sit in the waiting room because the office only lets one person back, and I had already told my husband I wanted him to be the one holding my hand when they measured tiny bones. Our tech was an angel disguised as a human, and she let me FaceTime my mom, and then she poked her head out and said to my dad, "If you come back fast you can peek for 60 seconds, and I have never seen a man move that quickly without a football involved." He came in, stood very still like he was in a museum, and listened to the whoosh whoosh that makes my whole brain go quiet, and then the tech paused and smiled and asked if we wanted to know, and I said yes because patience has never been one of my spiritual gifts, and she typed "girl" on the screen in those chunky letters. We had already picked the middle name after his mom, and my mom lost it on FaceTime like the proudest cheerleader in a quiet library, and my dad just put his hand over his mouth and went "my girls," and then he had to go sit down in the hallway. The doctor ordered a fetal echo because of my long QT, and we did the whole extra ultrasound dance with the little heart zoomed in, and it's still too soon to say anything definitive, but the cardiologist said things look beautiful for now and we'll test her after she gets here, and in the meantime I'm doing my tiny pill, my no thanks to energy drinks, and my best impression of a calm person. The strange grace of all this is my brothers and cousins actually went and got their hearts checked after my last update, and one of my brothers does have the same long QT, and now he's on meds and texting me selfies from the pharmacy like look at us being responsible adults, so it's like we peeled up a corner of the map and found a shortcut for all of us. There have been 1,000 small joys that keep catching me off guard. My sister finished the crooked blanket squares with Mama, the grandma name stuck, coaching from the couch, and we spent an afternoon stitching them together with yarn that kept tangling around our ankles, and when we were done it looked like a love letter you fold up too many times. Mama recorded herself reading "You Are My Sunshine" on my dad's phone on a day her hands weren't cooperating, and that voice memo lives in my notes app like a tiny lighthouse, and I already know it's going to play in my house at weird times and make me cry in the kitchen. My brother debuted the song he wrote about getting a big sister at his open mic night, and my dad filmed it in vertical by accident and apologized like he'd bought the wrong car. My husband and my dad spent a Saturday not mounting anything in the garage, and I walked in on them mid-YouTube tutorial with wood glue on their elbows and a drill bit stuck in the wrong direction, and the next day there was a crib in the nursery. It's half a degree crooked, and I love it because it looks like it was put together by two men who were pretending not to care and secretly cared so hard they forgot to eat lunch. The craziest breadcrumb happened completely by accident. My mom was cleaning out an old cookie tin from my grandma's house, and she found a wrinkled discharge paper from her car accident tucked behind some recipes. On the back someone had written an address and a first name, and she swore she didn't recognize the handwriting. We sent a picture to my dad and he stared at it and said, "That's mine." It was the address of the room he rented back then, the place she used to crash sometimes when the nights got too long. We drove by it, because of course we did, and it's a completely different building now with a mural of a giant hummingbird on the side, because city zoning has a sense of humor, and we stood there with coffees and took a picture like tourists of a ghost. I know it's just ink from a pen on paper, but to me it felt like the past agreeing with us. There was a moment at the end of the holiday that might be my favorite thing that's ever happened. Everyone was packing leftovers and my grandpa had finally put his whistle away, and my mom was putting foil over the mac and cheese dish, and she looked up at my dad and said, "Hey, do you want to be called Grandpa or Pops?" And he blinked like someone had opened a window, and he grinned and said, "Pops sounds like someone who shows up with donuts," and my mom said, "Then Pops it is," and I swear the air softened around all of us like the house exhaled. He's already texting me good morning pops pictures now, sunrises with tiny comments like she's gonna be good at mornings, and I text back she's going to be dramatic at mornings just like me, and he sends back a laughing emoji and a picture of mama's Bible open with a crocheted bookmark sticking out, and it makes me feel so stupidly safe. We hung that 4th of July photo in the nursery next to a watercolor my husband's dad painted of a lake and my mom's old locket that she cleaned up and put a new tiny picture inside, and the frame still has the cheap sticker on it because apparently I am emotionally attached to adhesive now. The room smells like fresh wood and laundry soap and something brand new I can't name yet. I sit in there sometimes at night with a little lamp on and my phone face down, and I put my hand on my belly and it feels like being a bridge the way I said before, but now people are leaving flowers on it and writing their names in the dust, and no one is in a rush to get to the other side. We're just here, together, pointing out the water, going look at that, and waiting for the tiniest person to join the view. Update 4. Remember how I said we were all just walking the bridge and pointing at the water? The universe showed up in roller skates and handed me a diaper bag. The baby shower turned into this mashup concert of both families and 3 friend groups and a toddler who kept stealing cupcakes, and my grandpa wore a sash that said shower security and brought the whistle back like it was part of his outfit now. My mom hosted with my mill like they'd been doing this for years, and my dad, sorry, Pops, because apparently we're doing this, walked in carrying 24 donuts and yelled Pops delivery. And everyone cheered like it was a touchdown. Mama made it in a wheelchair with a cardigan over her shoulders and a lipstick that did not budge no matter how many kisses she gave me, and she put her soft hand on my belly and said she feels like a dancer, and then she told me where to hang the crocheted banner my sister made that said welcome little bean, even though she claims she hates nicknames. My brother performed the song about getting a big sister and we all pretend cried and then actually cried because we're just those people now. We didn't play any of the weird baby diaper chocolate games because I cannot with melted Snickers in a Huggies, but we did pass around a blank little journal and everyone wrote her a note on the first page they touched, and Pops wrote I'll bring the donuts, you bring the sunrise, and I'm framing that sticker on or not. We did the grown-up medical planning thing too because long QT doesn't care about aesthetics. My OB and the cardio team printed me a red bracelet with no weird meds, please and thank you, not the literal wording but close enough in my head, and gave me this calm plan of lights low, go slow, we've got you. We walked around the neighborhood every evening as if it would coax her out early, and mostly it just made me pee more than any person should without having a hiking badge. We had 2 false alarms that turned into us eating drive-through fries in the hospital parking lot at 1 a.m. and laughing so hard I thought I'd actually deliver in the car, and Pops texted a sunrise from his porch with good luck if it's today, and then 10 minutes later I'll be there if it's tomorrow because apparently he has a deal with Delta now. Labor Gate crashed the most ordinary Tuesday. I was in the baby aisle at Target staring at 2 different kinds of diaper pails like they weren't both just future regrets when I felt this tiny warm whoosh that every movie lies about because it is not dramatic, it's like your body whispering now. I waddled to the bathroom, called my husband, called my mom, texted Pops donuts but make it the hospital, and then somehow we were in triage with monitors on my belly making that swoosh whoosh that puts my brain on mute, and the calm plan kicked in like muscle memory. The nurse who let Pops peek at the anatomy scan months ago walked in like a plot twist and laughed when she recognized us and said let's meet her for real. They let 2 people in my room and I chose my husband and my mom because I wanted their hands in mine, and Pops turned the waiting area into headquarters with my brothers running coffee and my grandpa blocking the hallway like a bouncer at a very wholesome club. My autistic sister came for a bit with her headphones and stood by the door, tapping her fingers in time to the playlist, and when the lights were low and I was breathing like the calmest version of me, she whispered you've got this, and it landed right where I needed it. There was a second in the middle where things felt too big for my skin and the monitors did their little hiccup dance, and I saw my cardio nurse's eyebrows lift just a fraction in that way that means we're watching you, but they never left my side, and my doctor kept her voice like a lullaby, and I did the part that usually makes people curse at their ancestors, and then there she was. Tiny and loud and slippery and outraged and perfect. She cried with her whole body like she was offended by air, and then she did that newborn sigh like an apology, and my husband made a sound I have never heard him make before, and my mom put her forehead on mine and said there she is, and I fell in love so fast it felt like falling through a trapdoor into light. We named her what we whispered at night when it was just us, and her middle name is Mama's middle name like we planned, and I won't put it here because the internet is the internet, but imagine something strong and soft at the same time that could belong to a poet or a storm cloud. Pops didn't want to come in right away because he was trying to be respectful and not do too much, but I said get in here, Pops, and he came in like he was stepping into a museum, hands folded, eyes bright, and he stood next to the bassinet and just looked at her, and then he put his hand over his mouth and whispered my girls again, and that's going to live in my chest forever. Mama couldn't come that day, but Pops played the voice memo of her singing You Are My Sunshine, and our tiny person went so still like she was listening for the first part of her map. The hospital did the baby EKG because of my long QT, and the cardiologist came in with the kind face and the kind voice and said for today, everything looks beautiful, and I held that sentence like a warm rock in my palm. We'll test again, we'll keep an eye, I'll keep doing my tiny pill and my no thanks to anything that feels like my heart borrowed Red Bull's personality, but for now she is a sleepy little cloud who smells like our laundry detergent and warm bread. Everything since has been these glittery ordinary moments that keep knocking me over. Pops showed up the next morning with a box of donuts and a bouquet of sunflowers because they looked like mornings, and then realized he picked a box with mostly jelly and apologized like he'd committed a crime, and the nurse ate one anyway and declared him her favorite. My brother came to the window and held up a sign he made out of an Amazon box that said "Welcome to the band" with little music notes, and I lost it. My husband and my dad did the diaper change like it was a bomb squad scene from a movie and somehow got poop on the wall and then high-fived about it because the crib was the real training, apparently. My sister sat on the edge of the bed and brushed the baby's hair with this tiny baby brush and hummed and said soft in this voice that made the room feel like a church. We took her home between 2 rainstorms and the house smelled like the fresh paint in the nursery and something sweet we couldn't name yet, and I put her in the crib that's half a degree crooked, and it felt like setting a jewel in a ring someone made with their whole heart and not quite enough clamps. The 4th of July photo is on the wall above the changing table, and Mama's Bible is on the shelf with the crocheted blanket folded the wrong way because I can't bring myself to unfold it all the way yet. That first night I sat in the glider with the cheap sticker still on the frame next to me and the lamp making a circle of light, and Pops sent a good night Pops picture of the moon and said we're on night shift together, and my mom texted me a recipe for lactation cookies like we were doing a group project for a class you can't drop. The first week was this blur where day and night dated each other and got engaged. I leaked on everything. I cried because a cereal commercial was too kind. The cat judged me, and every time I thought this is too much someone put a hand on my back or a plate in front of me or a joke in the group chat, and it turned into just enough. Pops came over in the mornings and took the early shifts so I could shower like a person with dignity, and he'd stand in the doorway with her against his chest, humming something I didn't recognize but will probably hear in my dreams, and he'd send a photo to Mama who sent back that baby looks like she knows secrets, and then immediately asked if we're keeping socks on her because babies lose heat through their feet, which is now family law. My grandpa installed a cheap little dimmer in the nursery because he said babies don't like overhead lighting. No one does, and then used the whistle to distract her while I clipped her nails, and I don't know what I did to deserve this level of chaos and assistance, but I accept it. We had a full circle moment a week later. Mama had a good day, one of those bright days that feel like a gift that comes wrapped in tissue paper, and she wanted to meet her namesake. She came in her cardigan and the lipstick and the softest blanket over her lap, and the second she saw the baby she did that little gasp clap and said there she is, and my dad had to sit down because apparently that phrase is dangerous for our family. Mama held her with that certainty only grandmothers have, kissed her forehead, and told her a story about a hummingbird that used to stare her down while she watered her plants, and our little person stared back so seriously like she was taking notes. Mama tucked a folded piece of paper into the Bible and told me open it when she turns 1, and I'm not touching it, I swear, because I like having something sealed from the future inside the future. We got another breadcrumb because apparently we live in a scavenger hunt now. One of Pop's old coworkers from the liquor store saw the hospital photo my cousin posted, DM'd him, and sent a picture from some dumb disposable camera on a random summer night back then. It's Pops wiping down the counter with a bandana on his head and my mom in the corner of the frame, out of focus, holding a grape soda and laughing at something we'll never know. I had to sit on the floor when I saw it because the universe is so extra, and I'm grateful. The doctor cleared me for walks and I took her across the little footbridge in the park down the street at sunset because symbolism doesn't care if you're corny, and I stood there with my husband and we watched water doing what water does, and I thought about every version of me that sat alone with true crime and hard edges and decided not to want things, and I wanted to find her and hand her this baby and this Pops and this mom and this messy noisy family and say look at that. Because now there's another pair of feet on the bridge. Tiny ones that kick and stretch and will someday run. And nobody is crossing in a hurry. We're just here, passing snacks and stories, pointing at the ripples, being ridiculous about donuts, letting the night and the morning shake hands while the smallest person we know yawns like she invented it.